learn to say no. If it gets on your to-do list, it's a yes. It's a full yes. It's a want to do. It's a yes.
In terms of pronunciation, Chiche?
My last name?
Yes.
Chiche.
I got it right. Yay.
Seriously, I think you might be the first one.
Where are you from?
I'm from Paris, France.
Oh, maybe that's because I took French in high school.
Ah, très bien. Do you want to do the interview in French?
Non, parce que mon français n'est pas très bien maintenant.
Oh là là, il est bien, il est
That's
bien.
like the one sentence, right? Like that you can say for years. Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Woman podcast. I am super excited to have on to the program today the wonderful and fabulous Sophie Chiche. She is a psychologist, entrepreneur, productivity specialist, and we are going to be talking about all things productivity along with what it takes to really break through on the inner game and the personal side of life as a woman and a woman entrepreneur. So welcome to the podcast, Sophie. It's so exciting to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
I have to say, you literally are the first person who said my name in America really well. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm going to flip my hair back on that and be very proud of the French that I studied long ago and is somehow still in my subconscious that I can pronounce things. Don't ask me to say Chinese food or dog because I pronounce them the same way and it's not good.
I guess we won't be talking about that.
No. The funny story that I have on that is that when I was studying in France, I asked someone, where is the Chinese restaurant? And instead I asked, where is the restaurant of the dog? And they were very offended.
Not happy.
That was like an insult.
We don't eat dog in France.
Yeah. So anyways, that's my funny story of mispronunciation. Okay, let's get started. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I work with a lot of women who are entrepreneurs and they're going for more in their business. And there's a huge connection to your own inner game and your own self-worth and how you see yourself and your self-image and making the changes in your personal life concurrently to making the changes in your professional life. And I had a big shift in how I was showing up for myself and who I saw myself to be. And that was very much connected to what I thought was possible for me on the income side. And I really had to change that internal belief system, that identity, that self-image of I am actually a beautiful woman and it is actually available for me, all the things that I want in life. And as a result of that, I was able to let go of 30 pounds. I was able to start dressing nicer. I was able to start spending money on myself. I was able to then be someone who was actually that woman I saw in my mind's eye, who owned the business that I ultimately ended up creating, this multiple 7-figure business. So that's my backstory.
Yay to that. Let's brush that off.
Yeah, that's my story. But I want to get to your story, which when we were talking about this interview, one of the things that caught my eye was that you let go of 200 pounds, which is not an insignificant amount of weight to release. And I'd love to know how that, I have so many questions on it, Sophie. How did that come about? Was there a moment in time where you made this mental shift? Were you always someone who was a little overweight or a lot overweight, or was this something that happened? Like, tell us the whole story so that we can have context on it.
The whole story. Well, it did start when I was about 10. There was in kilos, it was about 40 kilos, which is about 80 pounds gain, which is a lot on a 10-year-old. And there were some tests and there were some, a lot of efforts was made to understand, and although to understand maybe not, but to fix. I was taken to a lot of doctors that were specialized in like fat, and I was sent to fat camp, and like the whole gimmick. And of course, the more you do that, the more weight you gain if you don't resolve the very deep core reason, as you call the inner game, of the issue. So if you just do whatever I did, my best one, my worst one was grapefruit. Like I ate grapefruit for like 3 months in a row, which in some period of life could have been in a previous, century, could have been like directly linked to scurvy, or it was just really.
I remember the grapefruit diet. That was the 80s, right?
Oh
It
my
was
God.
like,
Yeah, it would have been the 80s. Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I did all of them really. There was an article I wrote for a magazine in France years ago that was called I've Tried It All, and literally listed, the celery thing and the needle of injecting some sort of pregnant woman urine. I don't know if you ever did that one.
No,
Yeah.
but
No.
oh,
Well, voila. Exactly. Voila. You name it, all of it. And so
but
the
it sounds
path.
like you were really desperate, right? Like you were trying all these things. It sounds like they weren't working because you kept trying them. So
Yeah.
inevitably
No, no.
they weren't fixing the issue.
Not only they were not fixing it, I really do believe they were contributing to the issue, because I would lose 20 and whatever unconscious fear I had would get activated, and I would gain, 40, 50 back. So every time I did that particular yo-yo, which everybody is probably familiar with, um, I would gain more. And so the question for me has never been as interesting, how did I lose the weight? But there really is the question of how did I gain the weight, which a lot of it was trying to fix the problem without so much as self-love, self-care, self-understanding. Why did I go to chips when I was angry? Why did I go to Nutella when I was sad? There was just so much in the story of what actually got into my mouth at the time that was such a source of information and judgment, because being fat in France, being fat is not fun at 350. It's not fun anywhere, but in France, Paris particularly, was being like 1,000 pounds somewhere else, probably, and just the chairs are not meant for that. The people, the clothes, I couldn't buy clothes, especially, I grew up, so I was born in 67. So in the 80s, 90s, there were the only stores that would be for bigger people were like my grandmother's, moo big giant tent. That's all I could find when my, girlfriends were all wearing cute jeans and, paisley shirts. So none of that. That's the beginning.
It was culturally challenging. It was it was emotionally challenging. And at what point did you figure out what was it sounds like it was emotional eating. You said, why did I go to chips when I was angry, and why did I go to Nutella when I was sad? At what point did you
Big
recognize that it
shift.
was the emotional component that was
No,
driving
it
things?
was a journey. There was, because in the trying to fix the thing, I would run into someone that had a little bit more of a slant of psychology, and they would ask me to journal. And so I would discover, that's where I discovered the link. A lot of people don't even know that link, and it is a real link. Like when you're angry, that really helps. So anything that's like crunchy, and then when you feel more sad and lonely, Nutella, gooey, soft, and sweet and down your throat feels really good. And so if you don't know how to feel your feelings, which certainly in a Parisian elegant household was banned, like there's literally, I have memories, and I saw it on my child. I saw it when I would bring my daughter to my family and she would express any kind of sadness. It would be like, hey, do you want an ice cream? Hey, do you want chocolate? Hey. And I'd be like, no, she just wants to be sad. Like that's a no right, feeling. And so connecting the dots was a powerful piece. But I would say there were two moments of like, whoa, that will never be the same. And the first one was, sadly, I lost one of my dear friend. Georgina died when we were 19. And she died of, lots of smoking, lots of going out at night and, drinking and doing a lot of behaviors that were the ones I was having, frankly, and very self-destructive. And she ended up with an aneurysm and dropped dead at 19 years old, which was like, okay, let's wake up. That's the path, that's the path I'm on. And I remember looking at the mirror once and seeing, oh wow, if you don't change, if you don't shift gears here, that's where you're going. That is where you're going. The ending of that kind of, life choice is death. There's no question. And so that kind of, it's an early wake up, at 19 typically is not when that occurs. And I did start shifting, not immediately, but I started making better choices. That was one of them. The second one, I gained a lot. Like that was 340, although it was still a digital scale. And so it banged on 340. So God knows it could have been more, but at least that the number that's official would have been 340. And I had my child, which my pregnancy didn't help. I gained another, I don't know, on top of that, which is what got me to 340, another 60 by then, I think. And then I woke up in the middle of the night, as I would. I was a night eater. Like I would do a lot of in front of the public. I would eat somewhat properly, but then I would go at night and ravage whatever was at the house or whatever was hiding at the house that I would have, snuck in during the day. Nutella was definitely, not to promote anything here, but definitely I had a lot of Nutella. And so I'm on my way to the fridge. It's 2 a.m. I just woke up. I'm barely awake. And I feel this existential thing that we feel, right? I'm scared. I'm lonely. I'm desperate. I just left my marriage. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. And I know where I'm going. I'm going to the refrigerator. That's a pretty safe route. And there it is. I sit there. I would pull up a chair. There was a bar stool that was fitting really nicely. I would always pull that up to the fridge and I would sit there and just, lovely light of the refrigerator in my face and shivering from the cold of the refrigerator. And I would just down everything that was there. My worst being Nutella with mayonnaise. That's usually.
Oh, that comment, Nutella on its own, but with mayonnaise. Interesting. Okay.
It was always like more fat, more sweet, more disgusting, because that was the point. The point was let's drown.
Yes.
Let's make it so I can't feel the other stuff. And this is what happened. I'm sitting in that fridge and I heard, and I still don't know to this day, there really is a curiosity for me, like where do we hear ourselves from? What said eat the chocolate cake and what said feel your feelings, literally. You can eat whatever's in the fridge is what it said, but then first you're going to eat there, but you're going to sit there and feel your feelings. And I did. And it was difficult, sad and desperate and lonely, like the very thing that I was trying to avoid. I gave myself the right to feel it. And then I woke, I got up from the thing and I said, okay, well, now you can go, you go eat whatever you want. And I remember this moment of like, oh, no, I don't know. And I went back to bed and I wasn't hungry and I wasn't desperate. I didn't feel that thing that pulled me. So that was kind of the two, 10 years apart, so there was an awakening of like, let's not destroy ourselves. And then there was a moment of like, let's feel our feelings and let's be a good, kind, parent to myself in that moment.
Absolutely. So tell me what happened next at that moment. Was a wake up call moment at the refrigerator, and you felt the feelings, and you had this revelation that in terms of the experience of like, oh, I resolved something in truly feeling that. Was it then like a light switch had flipped, and it was easy for you to then always go to feelings, or did you have to remind yourself of that in like what role did willpower, for instance, play in your evolution around this?
I would say almost zero. Frankly, I believe willpower gets us in a very bad pendulum where you just control and you tighten the screw on yourself. And then one day you just like sit there and eat 3 jars of Nutella. I did that many times. I think controlling oneself from a place that's, again, not loving, not understanding, not caring. I don't believe in that whatsoever. It's called white knuckling, actually, in 12-step programs. They have this expression where you stop the behavior, but you don't stop and so you kind of like holding on to life, for dear life. And I definitely did that for years.
And what we resist persists, right? Like
Exactly.
if we push against something, then it pushes back. And so we just keep building and building the intensity of the situation without resolving the situation.
Correct. Yeah. And there still wasn't, listen to this little girl that I just grew in this giant body, but was still a little girl that didn't feel heard or understood or listened to or seen. And who cares who did it? I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't seen by some people or heard by some people, but I wasn't by me. And so by not listening to my own feelings, really, I mean, I have no other word, sensations, about life. So was it easy? No, it's not easy to lose 200 pounds. It was simple because I understood there was a big piece of, first of all, it's a journey. There is no, okay, overnight, this thing's done, physically, first of all, it takes a minute, like 10 years for me. But there were plateaus, there were moments where I would not lose. It did shift though. It did shift the machine completely. I never went back. I did go back twice to Nutella, which I hadn't touched, I haven't touched other than those 2 times, which one, my cat died and I was so freaking sad. And I was just like, okay, this is where it helps. Like if you're so sad, you're going to do the thing and be numb, which I was, and nauseous, my head off. And then when my dad died, similarly, there was just this unresolved, sad, blah, and sugar helps. So I did, those 2 times. But other than that, I don't do sugar. I consider it, like, people always joke on my birthday, hey, it's your birthday. Do you want some cake? And I'm like, I don't do cocaine or heroin on my birthday. Like, cake is that for me. So no.
That's interesting. So it's not just, so what I'm hearing there, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's both there's a emotional component. I'm not feeling my feelings, so I'm pushing against them and I'm trying to submerge them and suppress them with the tasty mouth pleasure. Okay. But then there's also the biological addiction to sugar. Like you're also saying, like, that hooks you into a pattern that isn't functional for you.
No, and I don't know that it's functional. I think it's pretty dysfunctional for a lot of people. I don't know that they realize it, nor do they know that it could be easy. Now I can sit in front of my absolute favorite dessert and it has zero. I don't want to feel how I feel if I do eat the sugar, which is nauseous and numb, and I don't sleep and my skin gets all rashed. And it's just, I mean, I'm probably somewhat allergic to it, especially now that I don't touch it. So yeah, there's an emotional component. There's a mental component, like what I believe about myself or what I believed at the time, what I believed about thin people. My, oh my, like I had the whole story about this girl would walk in and they looked a certain way. And there I went, like, she can't be smart. She can't be kind. She can't be funny. It's just like, what? But as long as I believe those things, right? I was writing on, I don't want to be that. Right.
Absolutely. 100%. So for me, it was not about other people. Well, there was judgment about other people. I take that back. But for me, it was, I can't be smart and sexy.
Okay? Exactly.
I can't be someone who makes good decisions and like to buy clothes, right? Like, because that's a frivolous activity. Okay.
Yes.
And that was and yet I wanted that integration. I wanted to be smart and sexy, smart and beautiful, smart and someone who liked having style. And it turns out I am. I just didn't know that. And it, for me, it was different than your story. But for me, it was that my parents had money stories that when they looked at someone who drove nice cars or dressed really well, because they couldn't afford that. And this was not conscious whatsoever. And it wasn't done with malice by any means. To me, my interpretation of it is it was completely unconscious, but they would dismiss in some offhand way, some little comment that made having money not be something that we do. And of course, I wanted to belong to our family. We were an academic family. We were an intellectual family. We don't spend money on that. We don't do those things that would be frivolous, but it's all because we couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
And instead of shifting, and this is, what I really had to do to break through on the financial side was I had to shift that it was okay to be someone who made money and not to believe that I had to give one aspect of myself up. So
That's
it's
beautiful.
fascinating. Yeah.
Money and body image, and a lot of that is tied to one's consciousness, definitely. So your parents, your environment, maybe not just your parents, but your environment might have believed that because that's what they witnessed. Like that's, we just carry. I remember when my daughter I was pregnant with her still, she hadn't even been born, but I kind of made a commitment that I would do my best to at least clean up my side of the road. Like you can't, I'm sure I brought some stuff to the raising of her, but there was definitely a strong effort to like question. Like I would say something and I'd be like, is that true? Like, is it what I just said? Is that true? Like, do you have to be in bed at a certain time to be, whatever? Do you have to be in school at a certain time when really we know a lot more about education now, and learning when a child is exhausted is probably the
Not
least
going to
interesting
happen.
way. No. And the time that you go to school is related to industrial factories where you had to go drop your kid, before 7 or before, it absolutely is not tied to any kind. So questioning that, and to make a tie to the business, when I ended up, funny enough, I ended up with a spa that had 12 locations, that grew to like $10 million, type of success. And it was about sweating, which is really funny because in my household, talk about belief. We were an intellectual family, the money was there, but we definitely had we don't sweat. Like sweating is for the people, whatever, like if I ever brought someone at home, that was a jock or someone who was like involved in sports in some way, it was kind of like no, we don't hang with these people. We're smart. We think. We don't sweat. Mind you, if you don't sweat, you die. So it's not a good thing.
That's so fascinating. So I had a little bit of that story too, which affected my health, which was the story growing up was like, we read the New York Times, we don't go on the bike ride,
Oh
right?
yes.
Right.
Oh
Like
yes.
this is the civilized thing to do on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
And well, that meant that I wasn't exercising, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it wasn't that my parents didn't, put me in swim class or anything like that, but it just wasn't the zeitgeist of the
Yeah.
family.
It wasn't support. It wasn't like, well, that's the good thing. Like I was sitting at school when we would do reset, everybody was running around, but I'm sitting there, with my glasses, like seriously studying, because that's what good kids do. What?
Yeah,
No. We say no to those things now. Yeah.
absolutely. So fascinating. So tell me a little bit about the journey of building 12 spas, and what was the inspiration for that? And that's not something that you're doing anymore. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
That's
like
correct.
what was the inspiration for that? And why did how did it evolve beyond that to where you are now?
I mean, as a lot of things in my life, then it came out of my trying to resolve my weight issue, because when you're 340 pounds and you attempt to do anything with your body, you break it. You try to go for a little run, or forget a run, a little walk around the block. And by the time you get home, your ankles really hurt, and it's just really difficult to carry. Imagine, I mean, I'm imagining now myself walking around with a bag of 200, pounds of something, it was a lot. And so sweating was smart. That's what started the process. I discovered this technology, which was infrared. And at the time you can only do it in a box that was extremely uncomfortable, sitting, on wood, half naked, with a towel, of course, that would not even go around my one thigh. So, the fact that it's also not very thought out for big people, all those things. And so when I did open the spa, one of my favorite thing was that I got clothes that could go, I think 4X was the bigger size, like any size was welcome. And we had tables that we could, totally support people that were a heavier weight, because that's the point, right? Like that's why people would come, was to lose weight and clear their skin and detox, from any kind of toxin. So there was a lot of it. And so to answer your question, I was in a relationship at the time that broke up, and I was left a little bit with, I mean, I had a net, my family would have been there if I needed it, but I didn't want to do that. But I had $11 on my account. Like I had mixed my finances with this guy, and as we do sometimes as chicks, and it wasn't very smart, and I didn't do it well, and I didn't protect myself, and I was left pretty much with nothing. I knew friends and they invested, and I knew I had a computer and I had a place to stay. I'm not going to paint the story that I was left on the street in some corner. But it was really, there was literally, we bought tuna with my daughter. We love tuna and we ate a lot of it because that was not that expensive. And so they were rough years. There were like a couple of years there that were really rough. And then, a good idea, because I discovered this thing and I was like, why is it so uncomfortable? Let's make it more comfortable. So I worked with a friend that was a doctor, and we worked with someone that was, a manufacturing type of engineering skill. And we built this bed, which turned out to be now, available everywhere. But I definitely came out of our conversations with that group. And it was about 10 years ago. And I built a thing for me. And I said, why don't I watch TV while I do that? Because that's cool. I'm bored. I have to do that 3-4 times a week. I need something. So there I was, massage table, infrared, blanket, TV. And my friend would hear about it or come visit and be like, I want to do that. All right, let's make another bed. And there we were. And let's make another one. So 2 friends can come in. The next thing we know, we had, 10 beds in the first, 9 beds in the first store. And then the Kardashians came, and they were lovely and helpful and kind and wanting to help, and put us on one of their episodes, which I'll let you guess. I mean, we aired on October 8th. I will never forget. We had only the one store. So I rushed to do a second store because I knew I had a sense, so I built a second one in Santa Monica. And we opened the store on the 9th in the morning, accidentally, when they aired the episode on the 8th, which we didn't know when it was going to be. Talk about a little spiritual nudge,
divine guidance there.
Yes. Oh my God. I kept asking them and they were like, we don't tell. We know it's in the fall somewhere. Great. So I pushed really hard all summer. And so anyway, we opened the store, and I walk in to open the store, and there's 50 people outside the store. Like, why are you here? Like, we saw the episode last night. We want to know what this is, and we want to try, and we want to do, what they do. And of course that got us on the map, in a crazy way. And then we grew, 1 and 2, and then of course a third, and then people wanted one on the west side and one, it was just, when it clicks. Because once we were on the card, I mean, I do credit the growth and the speed of the growth to them, because once you do that, other people hear about it. So now they want to do an article about you, and they want to do, so press just grabbed onto us, and a lot of celebrities started coming, and, it helps. It helps a lot to have that kind of support. And we grew. And then there was an investor in the middle there that said, hey, how about New York? And I said, yeah, how about that? And so we went and opened, one temporary one for the summer in the Hamptons, and the rest was in New York. And the rest is history. So
fantastic. Yeah. And so did you end up selling the business, or did it fade out? Like, what was your exit strategy?
I mean, COVID, obviously, with laying down in beds in a brick and mortar, difficult, of course. I left to write a book. I was really committed to writing a book, Closer to My Bones, which is in the hands of an agent now and ready to go out in the world. It was the story of the loss. I think I want to be transparent. Sometimes relationships with investors are difficult because we focus on different things. Obviously, my obsession was not to make another buck. My intention was really to serve and to, provide an experience that was unbelievably delicious. And yes, tea that's handpicked from Japan made sense to me, but not necessarily to the bottom line. And so we had some clash of preferences, and I had done 12, and I was very much like, you know what, carry the baby next. Like I brought it here, not that I was bored, but it's 12 stores is a lot of, the next thing is 15 store, 50 store, 100 stores. There's more plumbing problems, and more staff that don't show up. And I just didn't, and I was ready to do something else, frankly. And we parted, quite amicably. It was more like we don't want, I still have my shares, I still own a good part of the company, and I trust them to take it to the next level, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, we split, and I don't. It is interesting to have built. It is like a child. People, when we finished, when we separated, I was sad, but I was also, that fits really well to my life. Like I don't stick to things, more than joy. Yeah. So I moved on, but there was like, people were like, oh my God, it's like your child. How do you feel? And I was like, it's not my child. I have a child, you know?
Yeah, it's a business, but I think there's something very interesting in what you said that I'd like to go back to, because I think there's a difference for people who are, I'm going to call them solo entrepreneurs, but the entrepreneur, the one who came up with the idea, they're passionate about it. It's their, I'm going to use the term,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
their baby, right?
yeah,
They're evolving it, they're
yeah.
developing it, they're really taking it from non-form into form,
Yes.
and putting a lot of that sweat equity into it, that energy into it. No pun intended there, but
Yes, pun
you know,
intended.
um, it was a good pun, but it wasn't intended. There
Yes,
you
yes.
go. Do you think that there is a different requirement for building a business from the ground up versus taking it from a particular level to that sort of massive level? And what do you think the difference is? Because we've seen it both ways, Sophie. We've seen, actually, I can only take it to this level, and then I need someone else who's going to really scale it. That's not my expertise. And then we also see the example of the person who, it is their business and they scale it and it becomes this household name, multi-million-dollar thing. Starbucks, for instance, right?
Yes.
Becomes that. Like, what do you think, based on your experience, the difference in personality type, character, perspective, mindset is between those two types of people?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure Starbucks was not grown to its big size on the back of, right, of the one starting. I
Well,
think there's a team that comes together, though.
absolutely, but he's still Howard. I think his last name Schultz, right?
Mhm.
He's still running the company. He's still actively involved, and he hasn't. There's the person who says, "I'm running the company. I'm going to bring a team on. I'm going to hire the COO. I'm going to hire the CMO." Right? I'm going to.
Versus I bring it up and now I'm done.
Yeah, or I need an investor, or someone else buys the company who can really scale it. Yeah.
You know, I think the one who starts it often has a visionary type of, they often were tracked in their childhood as being the kid that, invented the way to do the bridge with the sand that was different than the other kids or whatever. I think there are visionaries that start. I think the next skill is to surround yourself with the right people. I think those that really do control and want to be the ones who do the whole thing and cannot switch to, well, if I can do it, why would I spend money on somebody else type of mentality? I don't think that one can grow very gracefully. Is it a trait of character, or is it more, maybe it is a trait of character?
So I'm wondering whether there's something different. Let's use Howard Schultz as the example, since we brought that up. You said something very interesting, like, I actually don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like that, like I grew it to a certain stage,
Mhm.
but you're interested in your next
Mhm.
adventure, your next enterprise, your next
Mhm.
versus the person who it is
Sticks
not,
with it.
yeah, who goes deep, who goes long game, versus who can keep the interest in the same product, and it's the business that becomes interesting to them versus the product or the
The actual
service.
product. I would say both. Like I could have, I mean, first of all, 12 stores is deep and in depth. And I wouldn't qualify that as I skated it and I moved on necessarily. If it had continued to be fun, I would have stayed. I find that my privilege, having done all these companies and having partnered with all these people and having done multiple lives in one life, I would definitely describe that about me. The privilege is that you get to say, I'm not having fun. I wake up in the, I mean, I'm not saying it's like rah, rah all day long. We go and we dance all day. It's a hard work to run a company, but there is a quality, and maybe that is one of the intuition thing where I sensed that the boat was going to turn in a direction that I wasn't going to be enjoying, and I think enjoying life is a pretty big deal. That's what made me start the new company, because Be Current is all about, tying your purpose to your productivity. Because if you're just moving widgets and even if you're turning money, like a lot of money, there's only, if you still have to spend 8 hours a day or 10 or 12 doing something that you absolutely don't like, or you don't like the people you're doing it with, what was the point? Like, I don't, to me, enjoying life is the quest. If I can do it with this business versus this other one, that's, that adds to the cake. But
And I
I don't know.
I think that's the $65 million question, right? Like it's, I might have from 65,000 to 65 million, but like, is it that you need to change your attitude? Like that, because running a business, there are a lot of challenges. It's not just, unicorns and rainbows all day long. Right. And so your perspective, your attitude, how the frame, the mindset that you come to the experience with can change your experience of what you're facing that day, the challenge that you're facing. And then there is it's a discernment piece. Like it's not my attitude, it's that this is not what I need to be putting my energy, pouring myself into, putting my energy into. And I think that discernment piece is challenging for people, because I know I had to do a lot of I'm going to say it in a little bit of a harsh way, but like, get over yourself, lady. Like, come on, it's not easy. There is effort that you have to put in here. Like, buckle down, do it, but don't do it from a whipping yourself perspective, but do it because you really want it. And you have to break through this block that you're having. Like, I remember like the first time I did a Facebook Live, or the first time that like I launched something, it's hard. There's like chaos, there's things falling apart. And if you just say, I don't like it, right? It's supposed to be easy. You never break through that challenge that's in front of you. But if you say, okay, I know that this is my place where I'm growing, where I need to move through this, and you can change your perspective on it. You can look at it like a game, or you can look at it like it's fun. And you change your perspective, and it can change your motivation and momentum. But then there are days where you're just like, when is this not the business I want to be running anymore?
It's funny because as you were talking, I was imagining the parallel to relationships, like when is it's hard work to be in a relationship and to be close and intimate and tell the truth and express our needs and blah, blah, blah. And when is it like this jerk just treated me like shit and I have to walk out like now? Like, I mean, I think we can learn from any situation. And so staying in like learning to love unconditionally. God, I did so many of those. Can I learn this guy even if he's treating me horribly? And at some point it was like, no, I love me more. Like this is it. Like I'm no longer needing to prove that I can work pretty much anything. So I assume the best of myself, as in I'm not a slacker. I work really hard. I don't, that's my premise. Like I'm not someone who's going to avoid. I have a track record, I've stayed with what was hard, and I did open 2 stores in New York and in a snow blizzard and, at 6 a.m., to avoid paying whatever. And I went to get the paint myself. I did all of that. And so I have proof. That when given the opportunity, or the life presents me with something that's like, I take it and I do it. And so I don't need that. I don't feel the need to, push further what I have done. And that is hard work. I would say that's higher than going to the moon for me. I went to the moon of me. Like I know myself. I know the difference. I know when being a little bit lax with my food works for me. And I know when installing some sort of structure with my food works for me. I know when I'm not sleeping enough. I know when I'm treating people not as kindly, and it's a trigger of like, I've really studied the beast, And so I don't know that one can do that without knowing who they are. Like I don't, that's how you build your character, right? That's how you get to know.
100%.
Would I share my bread with you if we were in a war, which God bless us, I think it won't happen to us probably, although we don't know. But like, if I had my little piece of bread and you were starving next to me, would I give you my bread? And we'll never get to be in such, we are not right now in situations that are so dramatic that I get to see, what is this? Like, what is my character and what kind of person am I when comes, the time to show up for life? And so for me, the business, the way of eating, the weight loss, the maintaining an intimate relationship where both parties are fully alive. Those are hard. This is hard. It's hard. And so it is like, will I share my bread with you, if we were both
Absolutely.
hungry somewhere?
And I think that the people want um a roadmap, a litmus test, an if then statement that says if this then that.
Yeah.
And I often get the question, how do I know if this is spirit speaking to me or fear speaking to me? Like, I shouldn't do this because like I'm getting all the signs go in this direction, or is that just
Or
fear? Like, and I really need to move through it, right? Instead
that is
of,
such a good question, Amira. Seriously,
yes,
this is one of my favorite topic because it is developing your intuition. Like when I
correct.
was eating a lot of Nutella was an answer for everything. What should I do now? You should eat Nutella. But then I would be
And yet
sick
you
for a
had
day.
to, right, you had to stop what you were doing, experience something else,
Yes.
give yourself a chance to have the experience of doing it differently,
Yes.
experience the result of doing it differently, and then from that after triangulate
Yeah.
what the feelings were, when you were making both of those decisions. And then yourself.
Exactly.
You don't know yourself until you put it to the test.
Exactly.
You can't know this is the type of human I am until you challenge how you're behaving, experience the result, look back, recognize, oh, that was my intuition. That was a yes, that was a no, that was a red light, that was a green light,
Exactly.
like, right?
Wouldn't you say that's adulting? Yeah, that's maturing. That's growing up. That's not my 20-year-olds don't for a long time didn't know what they were doing, and they were certain that they were going to do this, and then it didn't happen, and then oh, that's not how that goes. Okay, well, let me try this other road. And I think parenting is teaching them the courage and the confidence to do that and to let them trip and to let them, because otherwise they're not going to learn. I mean, I was blessed in some sick way that I got a lot of difficult situations were presented to me growing up. And therefore I got to see, who I was,
Yeah.
maybe a little faster than others, but I would say nobody can really avoid that step. If they want
True.
a genuine, true, authentic life, you gotta trip and you gotta fall. You gotta say, oh, that worked better than this other thing. And
I would agree with that, but I don't think people do that, to be
no,
honest.
I know it's difficult,
So I will say that a lot of people make it into adulthood, make it to mid adulthood, their 50s, 60s. People make it to their deathbed, and
True.
not risking making a mistake,
True.
only doing what they think is safe, but isn't getting them the results that they truly desire,
Yeah.
because they're unwilling to actually experiment and see what happens if you do it differently. So I think uh, in the best possible world, yeah, we learned that in our 20s. But to be honest, I learned something. I was an adventurous, independent. If you were looking at me from the outside looking in my 20s and 30s, you would have seen a fairly confident woman. You wouldn't have seen someone who was dressed like this or looked like this, but you would have seen a confident woman in her own right.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I wasn't. I was terrified of making a mistake in certain areas of my life, and I was letting that limit. I didn't know right from wrong. I didn't know what the right answer was, because I'd never put doing it my way, for instance, to the test. Okay. And
But
that's
isn't it true still today? Isn't there things, I mean, I still have experiences where I stretch myself in a place where I don't know what I'm doing, and I've developed enough grit that I can be like, oh my God, I'm completely incompetent at this. And that is so painful. And let me do a little more. Let me grab, life in a
but
way that in
now
a month.
you have confidence now. Okay. People ask all the time, how do you build confidence?
But do I though? It's like, no, I mean, yes, in some way, like you were saying, in some percentage of my life,
You don't
extreme
think that
confidence.
you don't
But
think that's confidence to say, I'm terrible at this and I know that I need to persevere?
Not when I'm starting to play pickleball. I don't know if you've heard about pickleball, but it's become my absolute obsession. And I am so bad at it. Oh my God, everybody's evolving around me and I really suck at it.
But you're not turning in the other direction. You're still playing it and enjoying it. There's another human out there who would be like, And let me give you the
But
example.
I didn't do it my point was I didn't do it 20 years ago. I'm doing it now. And the next thing will be jump out of a thing, and that I won't do. It's learning to tame this fear and negotiate it, because there's some things we shouldn't be doing where fear is the appropriate answer. If you and I were standing on a roof right now and you said, I think I can fly, I would say, please be afraid and don't do that, because that's a silly thing to do. But yes, do I have the confidence? I have the confidence to be incompetent, which to
Yes,
me is
exactly.
yes,
This is
yes.
this is what I'm saying. When I was younger, I would do something that challenged my physical
Mm-hmm.
um capacity, and I would stop. I would turn around and I would say, I'm not doing that. And I was terrified of it. I have a very
Okay.
specific example of, like, in college, climbing at a fair, like one of those rock climbing walls, and getting
Yep.
halfway up and being like, no freaking way, get me out of here, and like shaking, and never doing that again.
Okay.
Not doing that again.
Okay.
And the analogy that like the now me versus my 20-year-old me
Yes.
goes, okay, I'm not a runner. I'm going to learn how to run. I'm going to run 30 seconds. That sucked. I'm going to run 60
1
seconds
minute.
now, and build it up and build it up and build it up, which is exactly what I did. And was it painful? Yes. Was I good at it? No. But I trusted myself, and I had confidence in myself to stay committed to that activity and get better at it. Am I ever going to be a world-class runner? No, that's not my gig. Okay. But I can get better and better. And I think I know what I'm saying is that when you start this process of testing, looking back, recognizing what it actually means, what those feelings mean, you build self-trust with yourself, and you build that confidence within yourself. So this is me just being new at something, and I need to persevere. And this is, the edge of the building, and I need to not go off of it.
It's funny that you use the marathon thing, because my fiance is a marathon runner. And when we started dating, there was like, oh no, it's easy. You're going to just ride a block with me, and then 2 blocks, and then 10, and then we'll run, the marathon in New York. And, part of me was like, hell no, that's not happening. But I did. I started running, and I did get better. And that's why your example is interesting. It's this is such an interesting conversation, because it is really, truly a difficult line. I started running, and I started getting really good at it, because it happens that I have really long legs, and that helps. And I'm doing my thing. And I start building my upper chest, and I'm like, da, 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 and I look in the mirror, and I'm like, oh my God. And that scared the Jesus out of me. And I stopped running. So, and I haven't gone back. So yes, I'm playing pickleball, but there's still this little town in me that's like, wow, looking really athletic, really sexy. That's still a village that's hard for me to visit. I guess I want to demystify the exercise. For me is just increase your capability. But I still don't feel like I've mastered it, and the confidence is all there. And I wake up every morning, and maybe we're using the word a little differently, because I do have resilience. I do know that even when I don't feel at my best, or I've put now in place, my friends I call, the list I go to, I've learned to work with myself. But I want a life where I still challenge that all the time. And I keep pushing against this thing that's like, oh, I'm probably not able to do that. Oh, wait, am I not able? Or it's like, that's a super rich, lovely battle. It's not a real battle, but it's like an internal, oh wow, I really don't want to go play pickleball because I don't want to feel incompetent right now. Okay, yeah, we're gonna go, even if we don't play that long. That whole
the
chat
conversation
with myself,
yeah.
Which in the past would have been like, and therefore go buy Nutella and sit in your couch and eat Nutella, no longer wins.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it is kind of expending our trust. I don't think it just occurs. I think every time I do something that I'm afraid of doing and I do it, I build a notch in my belt.
Correct. I don't think it happens overnight. And I think the conversation that you have inside your head and having it play out in different ways builds that if you are self-aware and if you're looking at it, will
Yes.
build the growth that you're looking for, the woman that you want to step into and be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears a little bit for the last few minutes of the podcast and talk about the productivity work that you are doing, and tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a bit. You talk about efficiency and effectiveness, and I'd like to know like how you see the difference between those two things and how they integrate also, because I think those are fascinating concepts.
That's really interesting. What would you mind sharing? What you see different? Like, what is your understanding of each?
So I think effective is how well you do something,
Mm-hmm.
and efficient is how quickly you can do something. So you can do something very quickly and not have it be an effective use of your time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can do something that's very effective, but it's not efficient, right? It takes you 3 months to do something, or 6
Which is
years to
interesting
do
because in
something.
France, I mean, you'll when you practice more of your French, there's only one word. And the place that so to answer your question, Be Current is a productivity methodology. I think it's a new way of thinking. A lot of people approach time as in, time management even is a funny concept, like as if you can manage time. There's no such concept.
You only can manage yourself, right?
You can manage you, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like when people like, do you manage the weather? No, you wear boots and an umbrella when it rains. That's all you can do. And so similarly to me, people that are trying to cram more, in time is kind of so the word in French is the same. So interestingly, to me, it's more about how tied is my productivity to my purpose. Because otherwise, as you were just saying, I'm just doing, and then I'm checking off all these things, but I'm still not having, I don't end my day with a sense of satisfaction, peace of mind, my sense that I did a great day. Like a lot of people don't finish their day feeling like they had a great day. Most people I work with, before I work with them, often will end up their days with, I should have done more. Why am I not feeling more, gratified from what I did? So my work accompanies people that have a lot of ideas usually, and they haven't necessarily fully translated them into a change of life. Some of them are very successful on the outside. They've made a lot of money, they've run big companies, they've done all this, but they still are not able to translate that into, tying it to their purpose, and therefore feel like it's enriched them deeply. And so that's where I play. I love playing in people that are doing things, but from a place of will and willpower we were talking about earlier, and often at the price of their own health or their relationships. They come home and they can't turn it off.
Yeah.
Their business head is on, and then their wife or their kid or their husband, whatever, they can't be present with that because there's just too much noise. And so I play in that noise. I love helping people download that noise, like see what that is, because sometimes it is emotional, mental, it's lacking structure, or it's lacking creativity, or it's lacking, you never know. That's why I work very closely with people one-on-one, because different people have different stories and different reasons, why they're stuck.
Yeah. So this is really the header is productivity, but the underneath, this is really about living a satisfied, happy, lit up. I call it living a lit up life, like yes. Where you're just like, I freaking love my life, and you're not. Yeah. So what would do you want to give like one little teaser tip to our listeners? I'll give one and you give one about like how to end the day feeling, satisfied with what you've accomplished.
Go. You go, I go.
You go.
Okay. One of my favorite one is making sure that's what's trotting in my head is not trotting in my head. So I have a system that allows you to download whatever's in your head and find it a proper place. The way when you come back from the market and you have the meat goes in the refrigerator and the toilet paper in the bathroom, right? And we don't do that with our heads. We don't do that with the input, particularly with how much input we're getting. And 10 years ago, I used to say, it's a phase, it's going to pass. It ain't passing. It's coming at us like full speed of train. And we, if we don't have a way to triage and to put stuff away, to learn to say no, here's my big one. All right, I got to it. learn to say no. If it gets on your to-do list, it's a yes, it's a full yes, it's a want to do, it's a yes. Just learn to say no and don't let stuff crawl up on your to-do list, whatever tool you use that you really have no business being involved with.
Absolutely. 100% on that.
What's yours?
So mine is at the end of the day, pad to paper, spend 5 minutes and write out all the things that went well and all the things that you'd like to do differently. So the reason I do both is that entrepreneurs will generally always think about all the things they haven't done yet, all the things that are still to come, all the things you didn't accomplish today, because you always have
so much more.
And it is a never ending to-do list, and you throw it all on the list for the day. And then you feel, as to your point, that you didn't accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. So you use that in some back-asswards way to motivate you, but it's demotivating, not, it doesn't actually give you that lit up life feeling. So the first thing is write down all the things that went well. Now, when you're in the headspace of I didn't do blah, 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 blah,
yes,
and you're feeling bad about it, that's a challenging thing. And most people blow it off. But if you're committed to this practice that changes your life, and if you force yourself, and this is a place where I would suggest you do force yourself, like really look, because you probably 20, 30, 40, 50 things probably went really well today that you're just glossing over because you're assuming
you didn't do the 3. Yes.
Right. You're assuming that well, either you didn't do the 3 or you're assuming that was insignificant, but you really did have a great conversation with so-and-so and you did move the needle over here. So first you articulate all the things and you're like, oh, wow, that was quite a lot. And then you articulate the things that didn't go as planned, what you want, all of that. And instead of just making it be you're a screw up because you didn't do that, right? Which is where that open loop, if you don't attend to it, tends to go.
Yes.
Then if you take, 2 minutes in this process to say, what would you do differently the next time the situation comes up? I would actually reschedule this because there was no way that I could fit that in today, right? So when so-and-so does X, Y, and Z, I need to say PDQ instead of ABC. Yeah. Yes. And you just give your subconscious mind a reprogram, a little nugget to be like, here, this is where we're going. It works wonders, and you end up feeling complete with your day. There's so many other things, but that's one that I just love. And I'll share the name of it that I labeled way back when I created this for myself. I call it soap for the soul, because it's like it cleanses you at the end of the day. Like you really need that. Just like,
that's beautiful. I can really see where someone would go home and, that really would wrap up in a way that wouldn't have this kind of open loop you were speaking of. And I'll tell you what I have on my list for tonight. I really love this conversation.
It was a good conversation, Sophie.
That will go on my list of what I've loved today. Yes.
Me too. I love that. Okay, before we wrap up, I have a few more questions for you, but I want to have you share with our listeners where they can find more information about you and the productivity work that you do and how you help sort of the high achievers be more efficient and effective, both.
Usual suspects. I'm online. I'm on Instagram. My name. You can follow all sorts of things. The website has a quiz, which I really highly recommend. A lot of work went into it. It's not one of those, hey, if you wake up in the morning and you know what you're doing, you're really productive. If you don't, you suck. It's not that. It's really deeply understanding the archetypes and how we relate to what we have to do, and to try to understand how to accompany ourselves differently. So to do the quiz, it's a free few minutes, really cool little piece to understand your own inner garden. So I would definitely do that. But you can find me everywhere. People.
Okay. And the website is becurrent.com. Is that correct?
It's Be Current Today, becurrenttoday.com.
Okay, great. becurrenttoday.com. And I'm going to go do the quiz. Maybe not right now because I have another appointment, but I will go check that out myself. And I encourage you all to do that. So my final couple of questions for you in rapid order here.
Mm-hmm.
what do you love most about yourself? I thought that would be a good one since we've been talking about all this inner game growth. What do you love most about yourself?
My kindness, my ability to be of service, my deep desire to help people is probably my favorite trait of my character.
I love that. I love that. And what makes you an unstoppable woman?
Oh, what a provocative question. My resilience, my grit, I am unstoppable. And if something stops me, I take the time to deconstruct it. And if it's something I really want, I don't let it stop me. So I think it's a matter of trusting that I can get to the other side of whatever that is, and endurance. It takes time. It takes time to get to the other side of things. So a little bit of all those things.
I love that. I love that. I can really see that level of persistence in the stories that you shared about
Thank
your
you. Yeah.
path and your journey. And I just want to reflect, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, sharing the thought process, both the intellectual, like how you've thought about it after the fact, but also how you thought about it in the moment, and the growth that had to happen there, and being so transparent about that. I think it's incredibly powerful for other women to hear that you can be both wise and strong and confident and capable and run a business that has investors and all of that, right? And be someone who has a soft underbelly that needs tending and love and attention, and that we're that multifaceted, and to be able to hold all of that and to express all of that is really quite powerful. And thank you so much.
Said that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, everyone, that's a wrap. I'm Amira Alvarez. I'm the founder and CEO of The Unstoppable Woman. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a loyal listener. Please subscribe. Please share this episode with your friends and family. And I will catch you in the next episode. Hey, thanks so much for joining us and being part of the Unstoppable Woman movement. We have got a ton of free resources for scaling your business at theunstoppablewoman.com/free stuff. And you can find that link in the description below. So go ahead and check those out. And we'd also love your help in getting our message out to more and more women. If you'd be willing to share this video with all the unstoppable women in your life, that would be fantastic. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Reviews, likes, and comments are greatly appreciated. We go in and read them all. So thank you for those. And thanks for listening, and be unstoppable.